Hey, this is Nick Nutter. I figured I'd try something a little different today. Recently, Metallica did a thing on Facebook and Instagram called Some Kind of Bracket. They basically set up a March Madness style bracket and had fans vote on which song beats what, and then just eliminate single elimination tournament to determine what's the best Metallica song. So I figured I would take a stab at it since I kind of missed this. I filled out my bracket. I haven't actually looked at the full results bracket. I do have both images. I do know who the semifinalists were, and mixed results, we'll say. So let's see. My history with Metallica. I started listening to Metallica when I was about 10. They were the first band I really gravitated towards. The first band I really wanted to get into. Like, that whole summer when I was 10, just before I turned 11, that was when I got really heavy into listening to music and into MTV. Pretty much anything that was on MTV, I'm like, yo, this is cool. Except for November Rain. I didn't like November Rain at the time. I do now, but, like, back then, I didn't see it, because I was 10. But anyway, the Black Album is the first album I ever got. I actually bought Nevermind the same day, but the Black Album is the one I listened to more. And by the end of 5th grade, I had all the Metallica albums. I went down a certain path. Anyway, let's take a look at the bracket. So, the first matchup we have here in the upper left corner of the bracket is Enter Sandman from the Black Album in 1991. If you're unfamiliar, the Black Album is called... the album is technically just called Metallica. It's a self-titled album. They call it the Black Album because of the album cover. And its opponent is Confusion from 2016's Hardwired to Self-Destruct. This is kind of a study in contrasts because one is the album that got me into Metallica. The other one is what makes me question if Metallica should continue. Because I only listened to Hardwired twice. I have not listened to it since the month it came out. I think I like 4 songs off that album. And Confusion was not one of them, so Enter Sandman, easy win in the first round. For all the times I've heard that song, for all the overplay it's gotten, I still like it. Like, I was able to come around... by the end of the 90s, it was insufferable. The radio had put most Metallica songs into the ground. Like, if you could make a Metallica Greatest Hits, everything on it would have been, like, nuclear heat. Don't ever listen to these songs again because you have already burnt them out hotter than the sun. But, with about 20 years distance from that, and God, does that make me feel old, but here we are. Yeah, with 20 years distance, I can actually enjoy Sandman again. It's weird. I didn't think I'd get there, but I'm there. So, okay, matchup number 2 is Through the Never, also from the Black Album, and Motor Breath from their first album in 1983, Kill 'Em All. I picked Through the Never, because it has that riff. That... I've always joked about, and I don't know if, especially now, especially this far removed from the Black Album's release, if we covered that song, if we played out, if we can ever play out again, we played this song live, and we just keep doing that, because that intro, they just keep doing that riff over and over again. They just go... If you just keep looping that, just keep doing that over and over and over again, like 5-6 times before you actually go into the song. Or maybe just go into a different song. I don't know. I thought it was funny. Anyway, no guff to Motor Breath. Motor Breath is a good song, but like Through the Never is just more solid. I've always liked Motor Breath. Like some people, I've heard some people in person say it's the worst Metallica song. I heartily disagree. But Through the Never is just more solid. And as I get older, I've come to appreciate songcraft more. A statement which you're going to call bullshit on as this bracket goes, I'm sure. But, Through the Never, I think, is just a more solid song. Motor Breath is more to the point. But Through the Never, it's beefier. I don't know, man. It's my pick. Okay, so number 3... Oh, one thing I forgot to do is tell you the results of the other one, what their results were. So, Enter Sandman beat Confusion in the first round, And, okay, so I'm 2 for 2 so far. Through the Never beat Motor Breath. I know that my bracket is already busted, so we're not going for accuracy here. Matchup number 3, Whiplash and Leper Messiah. I went with Leper Messiah. They went with Whiplash. And I understand because Whiplash is a crowd favorite. And it's not a bad song. Like, that song fucking slams. Especially the live versions. Like, the version from Live Shit Binge and Purge in 93, the box set, they play it almost twice as fast. And it just, yeah. That's a song that needs to be played fast because it's about thrash metal. It's actually about being at a metal show. Because in 1983, people didn't know about that. This was a new thing that was coming up. People were learning about this, and Metallica was here to spread the gospel. And to have a song about metal in your set list this far into your career that actually name drops your band, it's like, yeah, that's a crowd pleaser. Leper Messiah fucking rules, though. So, yeah, Leper Messiah is very heavy, very well structured. There's a seething anger to it. And it was written in the heyday of the televangelist, and it definitely takes them down. This was just before they got taken down in real life, too. Leper Messiah starts slow with these just brutal chords that are trying to lash the world with the whip of God. They're out for blood, and they will get all of it. It is very bruising, very dark and powerful. And then halfway through, it goes into this galloping thrash thing, and it doesn't really lose any of its heaviness. Sometimes you do end up sacrificing power for speed, but Metallica knew how to do both at the same time, and Leper Messiah is a great example of that, and I would have put it to the second round. Not that Whiplash is a bad song, but Leper Messiah, holy shit, that song rules. Okay, so, matchup number 4. We have Blackened from Injustice for All 1988 and The God That Failed from the Black Album. Now, I like The God That Failed, but come on, it's Blackened. This thing doesn't stand a chance. Blackened is one of their most ferocious songs. It's the first song on Injustice for All. It whips so much ass. It cannot be tamed. I'm going with Blackened. And the voters agreed with me, so what's more to say? So, next matchup, Seek and Destroy from Kill 'Em All versus Ain't My Bitch, the lead-off track from 1996's Load. So, complicated history with Load. I was really excited for it because Metallica was my thing, and I had heard this bootleg of 2x4 that came out in like late 95. Here's how big Metallica was. This pirated MP3 of a live recording of Metallica got tons of airplay on my local rock station because people were so hungry for the next Metallica thing in like 95, 96 that they played the shit out of a bootleg recording that was a bad MP3. Well, they were all bad MP3s because it was the mid-90s. But this got major airplay on my local rock station because people were that into Metallica. That's how big they were. That you could do that. You could play the shit out of a bootleg MP3 that was done at 96K. It was, if it was 100, I'd have been surprised. That's how bad the quality was, and people still rocked out to it. But when Until It Sleeps dropped, I felt so betrayed. And they played the shit out of that one too, but I could not stand this song. I was like, this is so wimpy. And then I heard the rollout. They took a whole weekend and they started every hour on the hour. They played a new Metallica song. And I didn't like any of them. I was just like, oh my God. It was the first time I was really ever disappointed by an album. Now, thing is, a year later, I bought Load because I actually understood it. I got into it. I grew up. I learned how to like that album. You know what I mean? And it's not without its flaws. It's way too fucking long, as is Reload. But, there's still some pretty good songs on it. And Ain't My Bitch is one of them. I think that song is fine. But Seek and Destroy, for even after all the times I've heard it, is just good. That thing will get the job done. It's not the greatest Metallica song ever, but it will cut like a chainsaw still. So, let's do it. Seek and Destroy. And the bracket agrees with me. So, another point for me. I've actually only missed the one match. I picked Leper Messiah over Whiplash, and they did the reverse. So, The Day That Never Comes from Death Magnetic in 2008 versus The Eye of the Beholder from Injustice for All. I went with Eye of the Beholder. They went with The Day That Never Comes. The Day That Never Comes is a single. It's got a special place for a lot of people probably that liked that album. I loved that album, and that was maybe my least favorite song on it. I loved it when it came out, but also that was the album where that was the peak of the loudness wars. That was the one where like they had pushed it too far. Because everybody's knock on this album is Death Magnetic sucks because it's mastered too loud. First of all, you're metalheads and you're complaining that your metal is too loud, so what the fuck? Second of all, they're not entirely wrong on The Day That Never Comes. I think that's the only one that actually suffers from that mastering. The rest of them, I actually kind of like it. I'm not going to say it's like the best thing in the world. Actually, I like it is maybe too strong. It doesn't bother me is way more accurate. Day That Never Comes, it actually kind of bothers me a little bit. I think the song kind of suffers for it. But still, it's not a bad song. It's definitely a one retread, but it's not a bad one retread, I don't think. Like, you could do worse, and they have. But, Eye of the Beholder is fucking great. There's a short list of Metallica songs that I would love to cover, and that's one of them. And Justice for All was, for a long time, one of my favorite albums of all time. And it's still up there, definitely. By the mid-90s, that was my favorite album. I listened the shit out of that. I would totally pick Eye of the Beholder over The Day That Never Comes because, one, Eye of the Beholder has better riffs. It has maybe a clearer message. But also, the mastering issues don't help. But honestly, The Day That Never Comes has been done before by this band. I would have gone with Eye of the Beholder. They went with The Day That Never Comes. I don't begrudge them that decision. It's not a bad song. Next up, we have The Unforgiven from the Black Album versus Spit Out the Bone from Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Spit Out the Bone is, like, decent. It's one of the songs I actually dug off of Hardwired, though maybe the one that lags behind the other 3 or 4 that I was into. The Unforgiven is another song that I never thought I would like again, but time and distance have actually found me finding a new appreciation for it. So would say Unforgiven over Spit Out the Bone all day, every day. And the bracket agrees with me, so cool. Next one, we got King Nothing versus Frantic. Now, I knew I wasn't going to win any popularity contest with this one. King Nothing's a good song, and weirdly enough, another fun fact is on the demos for Load, it's actually listed as Load. It would have been the title track, which kind of fits. It's kind of the example of a song from Load or Reload. King Nothing is a decent song, but I'm one of... You could maybe count on your fingers and toes the number of people that genuinely love Saint Anger in this world and still have some toes left. And I am one of those people. I will never defend the album because I understand why people hate it. Like, they're not even wrong. I personally love that album. I would 100% put Frantic above King Nothing. And that's not even one of the better songs on that album. Although that's one of the ones that people can seem to tolerate from it. I'd personally say it was like middle of the pack. But anyway, Frantic moves on for me, King Nothing moves on for them. Next up, One from Injustice for All versus Metal Militia, the closer from Kill 'Em All. Metal Militia is good, but it is definitely of its time, which actually I don't even hold against it. But One is one of the best Metallica songs that's ever been written. The theme of the song, the way it's constructed, the build, the amazing second half that just... this song is a great sonic picture of the horrors of war, and the video fits it perfectly. I actually watched the video again recently for the first time in a long time, and I never actually had an emotional connection to that song or that video before, but on this watch through I actually kind of connected with how the song related to the film Johnny Got His Gun, which is what the video is from and what the song was inspired by. The Dalton Trumbo novel, and then Dalton Trumbo film, because he directed it as well, about a guy in World War I who has lost all of his limbs and is blind, but is still alive. And they think he's brain dead, but he's not. He's still conscious. He still feels everything that they do to him. I don't know. I used to have different views on euthanasia on assisted suicide. I used to have reservations about the idea, like, if I had to do that for somebody, I would have been, I don't know if I could have lived with myself, but I've come around to the idea that it's not about me in recent years. There is a point where that is all you could do for somebody. It's a tough enough choice that I'm not going to, like, try to advocate for anything or whatever, because that's something that you have to arrive at in your own mental space, whether you're okay with that or not. And I struggled with it for a long time, but, like, yeah, no, sometimes that is all you can do for somebody. Wow, this got fucking dark. But one does that to you because that's what it's about. And because it's that deep versus Metal Militia, which is just a song about taking over the world with heavy metal, like, this band got from there to there in 4 years. So we'll say 5 years because it's just easier to do the math. But yeah, in 5 years, they went from that to that. That's crazy growth. I kind of wish they were still capable of that, but can't have everything. So yeah, one goes through, and obviously it goes through on the other bracket as well, because it is one of their most popular songs. One of their most popular. You get it. Anyway, next matchup. Until It Sleeps from 1996's Load versus Hit the Lights, the opening track from their first album, Kill 'Em All. Believe it or not, I decided to go with Until It Sleeps. That surprised me. That surprised even me when I was doing this bracket. Hit the Lights, it's good, it's fun. Like, I'm not gonna not listen to Hit the Lights. It's rad. I'm not even sure why I went with Until It Sleeps now that I think about it, but, I can't really explain it, but it feels right. It did not feel right to the voters on Facebook and Instagram, because they went with Hit the Lights, and you know what? I don't blame them one damn bit, but, yeah, I don't know. I guess I've come around on Until It Sleeps. To an extent. Let's not go too far. But, this one surprised me, but it feels right. I'm gonna go with that. So, anyway, next matchup. Welcome Home Sanitarium from 1986's Master of Puppets versus Halo on Fire from 2016's Hardwired to Self-Destruct. So, yeah, Welcome Home Sanitarium, easily. There are some people that I know personally that would, no matter what was against Sanitarium, they would vote for something else because they've heard it on the radio so many fucking times that they can't deal with it anymore. And I get that. I was there, but then I stopped listening to the radio for... I stopped listening to rock radio at least 15 years ago. So I've had time to heal from this. But some songs... you burn out and you can never go back. Like, for me, a song I wish I hadn't done that with, but I did it very quickly with, was Fishbone's Swim. The first song on the Last Action Hero soundtrack. And also the first song on their Give a Monkey a Brain and He'll Swear He's the Center of the Universe album, same year, 93. I listened the shit out of that song, and even though it's a nice, decent, chunky, heavy song, which at the time it sounded brutal as hell, especially for something that got play on MTV, but, yeah, no, I don't think I can ever like that song again, because I just played the shit out of it too much. That one I burnt out forever. And I did it in, the first year I had it. And it sucks, because I want to like that song, but I just can't dig it anymore. I heard it too many I played it too many fucking times on my own. It's not like it was on the radio or anything. So, yeah, I've heard it way less times than I've heard Sanitarium. Yeah, Halo on Fire, I never liked. I think I've only heard the whole thing once. Because, the 2 times I listened to Hardwired to Self-Destruct, the first time, I watched all the videos back-to-back when they all dropped. Because they had a video for pretty much every song. Actually, yeah, they did have a video for every song. They had 12 different directors. Which is a cool idea. I just wish it was for a better album. But here we are. And Halo on Fire it's honestly one of the better songs on the album, and I still didn't like it. Let's just say that. I'd put it 5th or 6th on the depth chart there, but probably 6th, and I still didn't like it. It's an angrier version of, Bleeding Me, I think. I don't really remember a whole lot about it. I remember the part where the band drops out and he yells, Halo on Fire. That's kind of literally the only part of that song I remember. I didn't even really fucking listen to it all the way through the second time, I don't think. And that was almost 4 years ago at this point. Who knows if I'll even listen to it again. Odds aren't great. So, yeah, no, Sanitarium, easily. Next matchup. And, oh, by the way, the bracket agreed with me. So, Hardwired to Self-Destruct versus Holier Than Thou. I think this is where I re-listened to Hardwired, because I've re-listened to the song Hardwired again for the first time in quite a while, and I actually didn't make it that far into the song, because I noticed right away the drums are mixed so loud you can't hear the guitars. How has nobody pointed this out before? How did I not notice it before? This song is mixed to where in a Metallica song you can't hear the guitars. Hello? So yeah, I went with Holier Than Thou. Because Hardwired, like, it's a good song and all, but it's the 3-minute version of a lot of longer songs that they do. It's not covering any new ground, but that was kind of the charm of it when it came out, was like, it's only 3 minutes long. Metallica's famous for 5 minutes and up, for not stopping until they're good and ready to stop. They put all of their ideas in there. That's the thing, they don't put all of them in there. They come up with a lot more ideas, as you see if you watch Some Kind of Monster. There was a lot of crap that hit the cutting room floor for Saint Anger. That album could have been worse. So let that sink in. But also, Holier Than Thou fucking slams. So I'm going to go with that. And what did the bracket do? The bracket picked Hardwired, which, I guess, if you're going by popular vote, the single is going to take the album track. But it's also one of the best-selling albums of all time. So, I don't know. I would have gone with Holier Than Thou. Okay, so For Whom the Bell Tolls versus Hero of the Day. So For Whom the Bell Tolls is from their second album, Ride the Lightning. Hero of the Day is from Load. I've always kind of liked Hero of the Day. I was thinking the other day about what Metallica could even do next if they were going to make it, because they started writing songs recently, they just said, in quarantine. And I was thinking of what would be the more honest Metallica album at this point, because they're all pushing 60. What if Metallica did a whole album of slower stuff? I'm not talking like Load. I'm talking about like more laid-back material, like more melancholy than angry. Metallica explores that side of themselves every once in a while, but they've never done a whole album of that. What would happen if Metallica tried to be Opeth for a while? You know what I mean? Like if they tried to make Damnation. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, the back half of Hardwired to Self-Destruct has a lot of clean tone, kind of mopey stuff, and that's one of the reasons I hated it. So I don't think that would turn out very well. And that's not why I picked For Whom the Bell Tolls over Hero of the Day. The reason I picked For Whom the Bell Tolls over Hero of the Day, which I really like Hero of the Day, but For Whom the Bell Tolls is super anthemic. It's not just anthemic, it's super anthemic. It will get your blood going. There's a reason they play it at fucking sports games. Even though it's a song about a fucking Ernest Hemingway novel. It's a song about the horrors of war, and only a few of you surviving to see the sunrise, and about how you gotta keep going no matter what happens to you, because there's literally no other choice, and how that could fuck a person up. And yet, it's this fucking blood-pumping anthem of, yeah, let's do this, because that fucking riff. Next up, Saint Anger, 2003, and Disposable Heroes from Master Puppets. As much as I like Saint Anger, the song Saint Anger is the weakest song on that album, which is kind of depressing because that's the one, besides Frantic, that they play in their set still. But Disposable Heroes absolutely wrecks. So I gotta give it to Disposable Heroes, and it's no surprise that, oh yeah, For Whom the Bell Tolls won that last one on the voters bracket, and so did Disposable Heroes. It's wasn't even a contest. Okay, I'm gonna start going through these a little faster now. Battery versus That Was Just Your Life from Death Magnetic 2008. Battery's from Master Puppets. It's the opener. It is one of their most popular songs. It is one of their best songs. I went with Battery, and so did the voters. Fight Fire with Fire versus Orion. That was one of the toughest ones on here. Holy shit. The opening song from Ride the Lightning and the 8-minute instrumental from Master Puppets. It's very apples and oranges, because Fight Fire with Fire, yeah, it opens with acoustic guitar and harpsichord, which already had people calling it Metallica sellouts for using those instruments in 1984, almost 40 years ago at this point. And it launches into this ferocious thrash song about nuclear annihilation. Fight Fire with Fire is about mutually assured destruction, which I thought we had put behind us, but, you know, that ain't off the table anymore. But Orion is one of their more intricate songs. It's one of their more complex ones, even though it's not fast. It's one of their more reminiscent of classical music pieces that there is. And a lot of people point to it as Cliff Burton's high watermark. Compositionally, maybe they're right. This song, I'd say the first half of it is, like, good for aerobics, because it has that beat to it. There's all sorts of really great harmonic solos, harmonic as in like harmony. They're not just for flash. They're definitely there to paint a vivid picture. And it's all three of them solo all over this thing. And none of the solos are wankery. They are all very meticulous and thoughtful and really well done. The more I thought about it, I had to go with Orion, and that was a tough choice, but I did it. Okay, so we're finally on to the second half of the first round, so the second side of the bracket if you're looking at the whole thing. First matchup is Nothing Else Matters versus Don't Tread on Me, both from the Black Album in 1991. Nothing Else Matters is one of Metallica's most popular songs by any metric. They play it at almost every show. I think it's maybe their most played YouTube video, or at least one of them. It's on one of the best-selling albums of all time, and it's a single from that album. So Nothing Else Matters, by pretty much all metrics, is one of Metallica's most popular songs. Don't Tread on Me, they almost never play that song. It's definitely a deep cut, but it's a deep cut on one of the most popular albums of all time, so there's not a lot noteworthy about either song, to be honest. I mean, Nothing Else Matters is the first straight ballad that Metallica ever did, because even their slower songs before had always this hard turn. They always have this, like, 2-minute outro that just shreds. This thing, yeah, it has a blistering guitar solo, but it never goes above that deliberate, waltzy pace that it has. Don't Tread on Me has more life to it. It does a little more for me, even though that's the phrase that's on the Gadsden flag with the snake and all that, and that flag has been co-opted by some pretty icky people. But at the end of the day, it's a less boring song than Nothing Else Matters, so I guess it's going on. Although, it's not really an enthusiastic endorsement. The bracket, of course, went the other way, because like I said, Nothing Else Matters is one of their probably top 5 most popular songs. Second matchup is The Thing That Should Not Be versus Damage Inc., both from Master of Puppets in 1986. Interesting thing here, I originally went with The Thing That Should Not Be, but I've changed my mind. After hearing Damage Inc. on one of the most recent Metallica Monday streams, because they stream concerts every Monday since they can't tour, they've just been putting up these mostly pro-shot shows as a substitute. And it's been kind of a nice little anchor in these weird times for me, because normally I'm not even a fan of live albums, but like I've just been watching Metallica every Monday, and it's been like this way to center myself in a world that I don't understand anymore. So yeah, they played Damage Inc. on the most recent one, and yeah, no, I already knew that song fucking slammed, but that gave me a new appreciation for it, and I've changed my mind, because The Thing That Should Not Be, I like it more than a lot of people do, because a lot of people find it kind of turgid. It is pretty slow, but it's also the first song they ever did that was in drop D. It's got some really... that outro is really heavy and brutal. Lyrically, it's kind of confused. It's half Cthulhu-ish, it's half Old Man in the Sea, apparently it was supposed to be about, but like they conflated the two and made this weird thing. I don't know, I've always liked a good slow, heavy bag kind of song. Just like, it's more of clubbing you with a tree than opposed to machine gunning you to death. At the end of the day, Damage Inc. is just a more exciting song, with a few lyrical deficiencies, but I can look past it because it slams. So, Damage Inc., I'm going to advance that one. And the bracket agrees with me. So, matchup number 3, Harvester of Sorrow and Bleeding Me from 1996's Load, a study of contrasts. Harvester of Sorrow and Bleeding Me are both technically singles? Question mark? I don't know if Bleeding Me was actually released as a single, but it was all over radio, so it may as well have been. It was like the unofficial last single of Load, because they played the crap out of that song. Usually the 6.5-minute version, which, upon further reflection, I'm thankful for, because holy crap, that song is too long. I liked it a lot in that little window of 97, 98, when I wasn't completely sick of Metallica at that point. They were the biggest band in the world, and radio latched onto that, so they played the shit out of every Metallica song you could think of. But, you know, is this even a contest? It's Harvester of Sorrow. That song wrecks. It's a lead pipe cinch. It just hits you. It maybe not even a lead pipe. Maybe it's more of a baseball bat, but it's going to take its time with you with that bat. I don't know why the violent analogies are coming out, but I don't know. Just kind of seems apropos. And of course, the bracket agrees with me, because Harvester of Sorrow is one of their more beloved songs that they still play a lot to this day. It's in most of their set lists. So, matchup number 4 on side 2 of the bracket, which I think is matchup number 20 overall, so nice. The Four Horsemen versus Broken Beat and Scarred from 2008's Death Magnetic. Broken Beat and Scarred is a hella underrated song. That middle section, the band ducks out right after the chorus, and it's just the guitar that... and then it just goes in this really killer midsection that just cuts. It's like a shark swimming around, just fucking shit up, and just like, yeah. But it's up against the Four Horsemen. And the Four Horsemen is one of their most enduring classics. And for a reason. That galloping rhythm. Just, I don't know if I've ever heard another song quite like it. There are imitators, but, and ironically enough, because it was co-written by Dave Mustaine, actually, the song The Mechanics was on Megadeth's first album. They played The Mechanics twice as fast, because we're better than Metallica, we're faster, we're louder, and it kind of made the song suck. I mean, The Mechanics is fine, but The Four Horsemen is an unabashed classic. From the first time I heard Kill 'Em All, back in, like, 5th grade, I knew instantly this was... I had never heard that song before when I picked up Kill 'Em All. The only song I'd heard off of that album is Seek and Destroy going in. I knew right away, this is the shit. And as tired as you might be of hearing the song, like, it still rules. It's a Horseman. It's gotta be Horseman. And of course, the bracket agrees. Matchup number 5, this gets interesting. Fade to Black from Ride the Lightning, 1984, and Jump in the Fire from Kill 'Em All, 1983. Jump in the Fire is technically Metallica's first single, and Fade to Black was technically never released as one, yet it's one of their most popular songs. There are very few Metallica songs that I actively despise, like I can count them on one hand. There are plenty that I don't like, but the ones that I actively hate, Fade to Black is at the top. It's number 1 or 2. Yeah. It's a combination of 3 things, really. 1, overplay. I had to hear this fucking song so many goddamn times towards the end of the 90s that I can never take it seriously again. It's just, nah, it's not a real song. It's a fucking, it's beyond a meme. I don't know what the fuck, it's been so run into the ground, I don't know what the fuck you even call it anymore. And there are other Metallica songs, there's plenty of them, I've been able to rehab because I stopped listening to rock radio, and Sanitarium's a perfect example, because that's like actually the greatest apples to apples comparison, because they're both track 4 ballads that go crazy at the end on neighboring albums, so it's the perfect 2 to compare it to. 2, I think it's because of the subject matter. Suicide's not something I want to think about, but have to more often than I would like. A lot more often than I have to. I don't really want to hear a song about that. That's just a personal thing. But 3, the most important thing, and I realized this actually because of the Metallica Monday streams. This is the first attempt by a group of 19 or 20-year-olds to write their first slow song, but because they're in Metallica, they have to make it tough. And that inexperience really, really shows. If you're looking at it objectively, yeah, there's a few cool little twists and turns in there, but it's not enough. This song is really basic. And those 3 things absolutely kill it for me. I just can't listen to the song. For the record, Turn the Page is the other one. I know they didn't write that one, but I hated that one from moment 1 and I never liked it. So... that one's got a unique place in my hall of shame. But yeah, Fade to Black, I could never fuck with that song again. Jump in the Fire, I always thought was at least decent. So, absolutely, Jump in the Fire wins for me. Fade to Black obviously wins for them. In fact, Fade to Black goes pretty far in this bracket, spoiler alert. So, let's just move on to matchup number 6. And Justice for All, the title track from the same album, versus No Remorse, also from Kill 'Em All. No Remorse, good song. I dig it. I love when the band drops out and it's just the guitar playing that the reverb on that for some reason just absolutely captivated me as a youngin'. And I've never really heard anything that sounded like that sounded that way. But Injustice for All is one of the best songs they've ever written. As long and bloated as it may seem, I never get tired of it. I never think it's too long. I've always, from the first time I ever heard it, I've loved this song. Always. Because I've always been more of a prog head. Political corruption has been a thing for a long time, but now we're seeing it tear our world apart. There might not be a world next year the way this thing is going. I don't want to feel like that anymore. I'm so over this shit. I'm so done with it. But these metal lyrics from the 80s, and I talked about this in my Trivium review back in episode 1 of Drink the Fire Hose, these metal lyrics that used to seem like hyperbole are actual warning signs. You need to be wary of money's influence on politics, on people being silenced for their views, and that's not on no fucking anti-PC bullshit. That's not on no fucking right-wing bullshit. That's like fascism sinking its claws into free society and tearing it to shreds, tearing it asunder. That's happening before our eyes, and seemingly can't do anything about it, but we totally can, but we need to be organized, and holy shit, that seems to be the hardest thing of all. My point is, Injustice for All, sadly, is more relevant than ever, and I have to champion it even harder because of that. So, it's also fun to play on drums. I dig playing that song. Absolutely, Injustice for All moves on. In the bracket, it moved on as well. Next matchup, number 7, Creeping Death from Ride the Lightning in 1984, and The End of the Line, track 2 from Death Magnetic in 2008. The End of the Line is a cool song, but Creeping Death is fucking amazing. Like that thing I was talking about in No Remorse with that riff, Creeping Death does something pretty similar, but the riff is so much better. That fucking riff is just so goddamn killer, I can't stand it. I can't describe accurately how rad this shit is, and Creeping Death just fucking rules. Let's just leave it at that. I mean, do I need to say more? And obviously it goes through on the bracket because it's also one of the most popular songs that they play at most of their shows. Matchup number 8, The Memory Remains from Reload. It was the first single from Reload, versus Cyanide from Death Magnetic. At the time it came out, I actually really dug The Memory Remains, because when Load first came out, I hated it. I thought it was the biggest. That's when I went through, oh, Metallica sold out. They're bullshit. Fuck that band. Oh, I felt so fucking betrayed. Like, the local radio station premiered the album by playing a new song from it every hour, and all of them were like, just, oh, I was not here for that shit. This was 96. I was getting more into, at that time I was starting to get in, I was already into Sepultura and like Anthrax, yeah, Pantera and Slayer were bands I was starting to get into, and I was not here for this bullshit. But a year later, because I started hanging out more with a couple of my friends and they were into it, and we started actually jamming on these things, and when we were starting a band for the first time, it also helped that they were a lot easier to play, and since I was just starting to learn the instrument, so yeah, we would try to play things like Devil's Dance and The Memory Remains and stuff like that. By hanging out with my friend, he sold me on Load, and I got the album. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. It's not necessarily a Metallica album, but it's pretty good. And then The Memory Remains came out, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is my shit, man. At the time, I was 15. I'd say more of Load and Reload holds up than you think it does, because I've listened to them relatively recently. The Memory Remains is not one of those songs. It's boring. It just hasn't held up well. Cyanide, on the other hand, is still a reasonably good head-bobbing type of song. It's that mid-paced, chugging, energetic. In fact, they described it as heavy bag workout, like Robert Trujillo did in the making of Death Magnetic, and then I think they had described All Nightmare Long as the speed bag. And yeah, I could see that. I'm gonna go with Cyanide. The bracket, of course, went with Memory Remains because it was a single, and it's a fan vote, so I get it. Next matchup. Master of Puppets, the title track, versus Dyer's Eve from Injustice for All. Puppets, rightfully so, has been heralded as one of the best heavy metal songs of all time. I think it's one of the best crafted. I think it's definitely one of the best written. I might have more of a different taste or opinion, but I definitely think Puppets kicks ass. I still really like that song, and it's still a part of me because I've been listening to that album for almost 30 years now. Dyer's Eve, however, shreds so goddamn hard that the band has only played it a couple of times because it's really, really taxing to play. I think it might actually be the shortest song on Injustice for All at 5 minutes and change. And yet it is the toughest to play because it's the fastest. It might be their fastest song. You might think the lyrics of lashing out at your parents is cliche as hell, but it's done from a perspective of challenging them on their bullshit, of confronting them with the abuse that they have done. Do we have evidence of this abuse? We don't really need to because it's a fictional scenario, theoretically. I don't believe that songs have to always come from a real place. Maybe the emotion started in a real place and it gets amplified, but it turns into a dramatized scenario. In metal, that's fine. There have been plenty of I hate my mom and dad songs that have actually come from places of abuse that have been complete horseshit because they're done by guys that ended up being douchebags that might have gone on to do the same thing. I don't know. It's weird to even really judge something like that because you're judging somebody's inner thoughts and feelings because they've been released as a piece of art. It helps that the song fucking shreds, that the solo is really fitting for the material because it has that right balance of technical fury, angst, and melancholy that kind of fits the subject matter. It cuts to the quick, it's efficient in its killing, but it also gets all of its point across, and its feelings. The relentless fury of this song takes it over Master of Puppets for me, but it was a hard choice, because Puppets is one of their magnum opuses. It is definitely one of their best songs, and it's hard to top, but I think Dyer's Eve is that much better. Of course, the bracket does not agree with me because Puppets is also one of their most popular songs, and I don't begrudge them that choice. Not at all, because it could have gone either way. Alright, next matchup. Atlas Rise from Hardwired to Self-Destruct in 2016 versus Now That We're Dead, which is literally the next track on the album. Now That We're Dead was the first moment ever that... Have you ever come across a YouTube video or a torrent or a LimeWire download or something like that that was mislabeled as a Metallica song? That was like, new Metallica song, 2012 or whatever, some year that they didn't actually put an album out. And it's just some dude trying to sound like Metallica to get noticed. Now That We're Dead is the first time I felt like Metallica sounded like that. That's the first time I felt like Metallica was starting to fall into actual self-parody. That was where I knew this album was gonna be trouble. Because Hardwired and Atlas Rise before that were reasonably good. They weren't like knocking my socks off, but they were good. Now That We're Dead really never got past, wow, this sounds like fake Metallica to me. It sounds like a Metallica song, but it sounds so watered down. And what the hell is with Lars's tom sound on this song? It's so clicky. And they had that problem in Invisible Kid in 2003, but Saint Anger was trying to sound weird. This is not. Is he literally just hitting the rim of the tom every time? Because that sounds bad. It's one thing if you're trying to sound bad or weird or different. This isn't. That always bugged me about that. Atlas Rise, like I said, reasonably good song of theirs, but also, again, I gotta go back to these Metallica Monday streams. They streamed one from, it was actually the day that this album came out. They started with Creeping Death and Battery and like all these, they just put all these shred-ass songs up front, and then they did Sad But True. Then they did Atlas Rise, and I realized, yeah, it's still good, but it is not at the same level. It's just not. So, it moves on, but don't expect it to do much. Same here. Atlas Rise actually moves on in the fan bracket as well. Next matchup is Fuel from Reload versus I Disappear from the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack. This is one of only a handful of Metallica songs that is exclusive to a soundtrack. Off the top of my head, I can only think of 3. One of them is a remix of For Whom the Bell Tolls that Kirk Hammett guested on from the Spawn soundtrack. One of them is I Disappear, and the third one was a song called We Did It Again, which, if you've seen the bonus features for Some Kind of Monster, you know what the fuck is up. While James was in rehab, Lars and Kirk and Bob Rock recruited Ja Rule and Swizz Beatz to make this unholy concoction. It ended up on the Biker Boys soundtrack, a movie from 2003. It was using two different songs that were recorded during the Presidio sessions, which was just before Hetfield went to rehab. So, literally cast-offs from Saint Anger were Frankensteined into this weird Ja Rule song. And, like, Lars, Kirk, and Bob Rock were there supervising the vocal recording. And Swizz Beatz was, I think, in New York with Ja Rule. Where was I going with this? Oh, right. I Disappear. I Disappear is a fun little curiosity, but nobody's gonna, like, champion this song. Nobody stands I Disappear. Fuel is still legitimately popular, and honestly, it's a legitimately good song. Yeah, the "Give me fuel, give me fire" has been memed to death, but the song still slams, especially when they play it live. Like, it fits right in with shit. At their 20th anniversary Puppets show, they opened with Motor Breath and went right into Fuel, and it didn't sound out of place at all. So, obviously, Fuel wins this one. Okay, next matchup, Ride the Lightning, the title track, versus The Shortest Straw from Injustice for All. This one was really tough. I love both songs, but ultimately I gotta go with Ride the Lightning. The bracket agrees with me, but yeah, no, reason is Shortest Straw is great. Injustice for All is my favorite Metallica album, and it always has been, but Ride the Lightning is just better composed, I guess. It is a very, very narrow tiebreaker. The Shortest Straw taught me a lot of vocabulary words I didn't know, like nadir, and it taught me what Catch-22 was. All these things I had to look up to figure out what the hell they were talking about. It was the first time I'd heard the word blacklisted. It's the first time I'd heard the word... Oh my god, I could go through these lyrics all day. And I was 11 the first time I heard this song. And yeah, no, it taught me a lot, weirdly enough. It made me research a bunch of shit, and, like, that's not the worst thing in the world. It made me measurably smarter, because I learned things from it. But I still have to go with Ride the Lightning, because it's just, through the solo section, the guitar harmonies, and all the shit, it's just so masterfully orchestrated. I gotta give it up. So, okay, moving along. Sad But True versus Phantom Lord. Phantom Lord has always been alright. I've never, like, loved the song, but I've always liked it. I always thought the breakdown sounded pretty cool. But Sad But True, that stop in the song, that fucking stop, that's everything. And then there's some pretty heavy chords in it, because they've always done that inverted thing, the weird shit. And just the attitude. That was the first album track I'd ever heard on a Metallica album that wasn't a single yet. The Black Album was the first album that was ever mine. You know, it was the first time I'd ever got into an album. And Metallica was the first time I ever got into a band. So, yeah, no, I have to go with Sad But True. And, of course, the bracket agrees because it's one of their most popular songs. Again, they have a ton of popular songs, so I'm just going to keep saying that. Next is Of Wolf and Man, also from the Black Album, versus All Nightmare Long, the second single from Death Magnetic. All Nightmare Long is one of my favorite Metallica songs, maybe my favorite. We'll see. And Of Wolf and Man, it's good, but All Nightmare Long, oh my god, it does not let up. It just doesn't stop. This song, it's a werewolf with a fucking machete. It will not stop until it has all of your blood in its stomach. It's coming for you. It never stops. It just keeps getting harder and faster and coming out of that solo. That fucking guitar part. Oh my god. That is one of the heaviest things I've ever heard. This just, it's so goddamn hard. Can't fucking handle it. So yeah, All Nightmare Long, all day long. This one's interesting. Wherever I May Roam, from the Black Album, versus The Call of Cthulhu from Ride the Lightning. And, of course, before I forget, All Nightmare Long actually advances on the fan bracket as well. So, hey, somebody agrees with me somewhere. I thought my choice was going to be kind of controversial, because I went with Wherever I May Roam. If not for the music video of Wherever I May Roam. I don't know if I would have gotten into Metallica when I did, and I really don't know if I would have gravitated towards drums. Because while watching that video, it's like, I think I could do that. And these guys all look cool, because this is early 90s Metallica. By watching those videos, I tried to figure out what drum sounds made what. Even though the sound's not diegetic, I was able to kind of decipher what drum sounds did what and what drums to hit during what parts. So that helped me start the very, very, very beginning of me being a drummer. So Wherever I May Roam will always have this place in my heart. And it's such a weird song when you think about it, when you look at it. It's got this weird riff it shouldn't be catchy, but it is somehow. And it doesn't change, well, it does change pace. It gets slower during the verses and lays out, and it's more arpeggiated and resonant, and there's not a lot of notes. And then it picks back up for the chorus, but it never actually, like, goes ham, but it still propels you. It's still about traveling down the road, so it definitely feels like the ultimate we're going to make this journey type of song. And the solo is great. I love the solo in this song. It's got such character. I just dig it. Call of Cthulhu, no slouch. And if you ever heard S&M, the version on that one is the definitive version to me, because I think with the symphony orchestra, the song gains so much. So the album version kind of pales in comparison to me, and that doesn't really help its case against this song that was so formative to me. So Wherever I May Roam advances, and to my surprise, even though I thought Cthulhu would easily trounced this, well, maybe not easily because it was a single off of the Black Album, but I was wrong. The fans actually voted for Wherever I May Roam. Okay, we're finally to the end of the first round. I promise the next rounds will be a lot faster because I don't have to actually talk about my history of anything. I didn't have to talk about any of this, but you get the idea. I won't have to go as in-depth. So we have Moth into Flame from Hardwired to Self-Destruct versus No Leaf Clover from S&M. Having heard No Leaf Clover without the symphony orchestra, holy shit does it not hold up. Some of the heavier parts do, but without that orchestra, that song is not as good. Not even remotely. And most people would not view that song favorably. In fact, Moth into Flame won the fan vote. It's weird because initially I thought Atlas Rise and Moth into Flame. I thought Moth into Flame was the better one because I'd heard it first. And then Atlas Rise was kind of doing the same thing but not as well. Once I heard the album, I reversed my opinion on those. And I think Moth into Flame is kind of redundant. It's fine, but I'm not that into it. And I never really have been. So for me, No Leaf Clover with the orchestra, I think that's enough to put it over, and I'm going with No Leaf Clover. So that brings us to the second round. My matchup and their matchup are the same. It's Enter Sandman versus Through the Never. I went with Through the Never because, again, that riff. And Enter Sandman's fine, but it's kinda milquetoast. It's a little bit in the middle. The fans went with Sandman because it's Sandman. It's one of the most popular songs in metal history. So, I don't begrudge them that, but I would have chose Through the Never. My match number 2 would have been Leper Messiah versus Blackened. Theirs is Whiplash versus Blackened. Either way, Blackened wins. So, we agree on that. Leper Messiah is fine. It's more than fine. It fucking rips, but it's fucking Blackened. They named their record label after this thing for a reason. So I had Seek and Destroy versus Eye of the Beholder. In the fan vote, it was Seek and Destroy versus The Day That Never Comes. I went with Eye of the Beholder again, because Seek and Destroy, it's cool, but Eye of the Beholder just has more of a point to it. Seek and Destroy is more about being on the scene. Eye of the Beholder is actually about trying to stop corrupting forces in the world, and about people having their thoughts corrupted by media. Obviously, Seek and Destroy beats The Day That Never Comes on their bracket, so I probably would have made that same choice. So matchup number 4 for me is the Unforgiven versus Frantic. On their matchup, it's the Unforgiven versus King Nothing. I might call another audible here, because originally I went with Frantic. And the more I've heard the Unforgiven over the last few weeks, yeah, no, I'm calling an audible. I'm going with the Unforgiven. And as it happens, so did the fan bracket over King Nothing. So hey, okay, we're back on track it a little bit. So the next matchup for me was 1 versus Until It Sleeps, and the next matchup for them was 1 versus Hit the Lights. Either way, 1 wins. Next matchup, Sanitarium versus Holier Than Thou. I went with Sanitarium, because Holier Than Thou, it's nice, it's to the point, but Sanitarium just has so much more to it, so much more meat on that bone. And the fan vote was Sanitarium versus Hardwired. So on average, I think I got one of these. I don't even want to call it right because it's all opinion, but I matched up one of the 2 songs in most of these brackets on the first side. On the second side, I think it might have been different. Next, we have For Whom the Bell Tolls versus Disposable Heroes. I went with Disposable Heroes because they're both about war, but Disposable Heroes just goes so much harder. One of them is about people that survive war, one of them is about one that doesn't. And I went with the one that doesn't, I guess. Actually, I matched up with the fan bracket here. That was their matchup as well. And of course, For Whom the Bell Tolls went over because it's an extremely popular song, and I don't begrudge them that. I could have been swayed to make that decision, but I chose Disposable Heroes. Then I had Battery versus Orion, as did they, and I went with Battery, and so did they. So I matched up with the fans on that one, which, you know, I usually don't. I usually have some weird opinions about Metallica, as you know from listening to about an hour of this. So, other side of the bracket now. I had Don't Tread on Me versus Damage Inc. And I went with Damage Inc. because Don't Tread on Me is pretty in the middle. They had Nothing Else Matters versus Damage Inc. and went with Nothing Else Matters, which kind of doesn't surprise me. Damage Inc. is an album track. It's kind of a deep cut, but not as deep as some. But Nothing Else Matters, it is one of their most popular songs, so there you go. They had Harvester of Sorrow versus the Four Horsemen, as did I. I actually went with the Horsemen. They went with Harvester. That's really interesting to me. I would have thought Horseman would have ran roughshod. Not that Harvester's bad, but like, I really didn't expect that Harvester was more popular. But I guess it is. Four Horsemen is one of their signature songs. But Harvester of Sorrow won the vote. I consider that kind of an upset. Okay, so I had Jump in the Fire versus Injustice for All. They had Fade to Black versus Injustice for All. Their winner was Fade to Black. Fade to Black actually gets to the semifinals. Spoiler alert. So, I went with Injustice for All because that song rules. And Jump in the Fire it's good, not great. Next up, I had Creeping Death versus Cyanide. They had Creeping Death versus Memory Remains. Either way, Creeping Death wins. Because, I mean, really? Do I have to explain? My matchup was Dyer's Eve versus Atlas Rise. Theirs was Master of Puppets versus Atlas Rise. Master of Puppets won their matchup. Dyer's Eve wins mine. Either way, Atlas Rise falls. I don't begrudge them that one bit. Master of Puppets kicks ass. They had Fuel versus Ride the Lightning, as did I. And we both went with Ride the Lightning, because it's Ride the fucking Lightning, man. I understand why they don't play it live as often, because it's kind of hard to sing. And with both guitars playing that lead, it doesn't sound quite as hard, but it just wrecks. So Sad But True versus All Nightmare Long, which we both had. I went with All Nightmare Long because, I'll say it again, it's one of Metallica's top 2 or 3 songs. Easily, for me. I love this song. No hard feelings to them for picking Sad But True, because that song, it's a part of me, and it's probably a part of a lot of people. But, like, I had to go with All Nightmare Long. It's just amazing to me. So their final matchup was Wherever I May Roam versus Moth into the Flame. I went with Wherever I May Roam versus No Leaf Clover. Wherever I May Roam wins both ways. So starting to realize that my bracket is not as far off from the fans as I thought it would be. So let's see. Round 3. So I had Through the Never versus Blackened. They had Enter Sandman versus Blackened. Sandman wins their matchup. Blackened wins mine. We disagree there. So match 2, round 3, Eye of the Beholder versus the Unforgiven for me. Seek and Destroy versus Unforgiven for them. Seek and Destroy wins that matchup. Eye of the Beholder wins for me. Match 3, round 3, 1 versus Welcome Home Sanitarium, which is the same as theirs. And we both had the same result, 1, because 1 is awesome. 1 is just fucking amazing. That one, well, we'll get to it. That one. Whatever. Anyway, matchup number 4, Disposable Heroes versus Battery. I went with Battery. Their matchup was Bells versus Battery. So For Whom the Bell Tolls versus Battery. And they went with For Whom the Bell Tolls. Which, now that I think about it, doesn't surprise me as much as it might. Other side of the bracket. So this would be matchup number 5 of round 3. Their matchup is Nothing Else Matters versus Harvester of Sorrow, and Nothing Else Matters actually beats Harvester here, which doesn't surprise me. I had Damage Inc. versus the Four Horsemen, which is totally not what they had, and I went with Damage Inc. over the Four Horsemen, which is astonishing in some respects, but it's Damage Inc. on the other hand. So hey, there you go. I had Injustice for All versus Creeping Death for match 6. They had Fade to Black versus Creeping Death. And the fan vote went with Fade to Black. I went with Injustice for All. And that was a tough choice. Injustice for All and Creeping Death is a tough choice. But Justice for All just ekes it out. Matchup number 7 for round 3 for me was Dyer's Eve versus Ride the Lightning. On the fan vote, it was Master of Puppets versus Ride the Lightning, the battle of the title tracks. Either way, Ride the Lightning loses. I went with Dyer's Eve because it's just so nuclear. And Puppets is a better song than Ride the Lightning too. But there aren't a lot of better songs than Ride the Lightning in their catalog. So that was a tough pick either way. Matchup number 8 of round 3, All Nightmare Long versus Wherever I May Roam. Had to go with All Nightmare Long. And you're gonna hear that a couple of more times. But is it enough to win? We'll see. Their matchup was Sad But True versus Wherever I May Roam, which were neighboring singles on the Black Album, and they were both using footage from A Year and a Half of Life of Metallica. They're basically the same video, but they went with Sad But True. So either way, Wherever I May Roam falls. Round 4. Matchup number 1 for me. This is the quarterfinals. Blackened versus Eye of the Beholder. I love Eye of the Beholder, but Blackened is Blackened. It's got so many different parts that just all hit. It launches into this relentless barrage about the end of the world and about why you should be ashamed at yourself for being human and being a part to it and how you're gonna get what you deserve. Yeah, big mood right now. Their matchup was Sandman versus Seek and Destroy, and they went with Sandman. So Sandman goes to the semifinals, and theirs, Blackened, goes to the semifinals, and mine. Round 4, match number 2, for me, it was One versus Battery. For them, it was One versus For Whom the Bell Tolls, and both times, One wins the day. So the semifinals in the fan bracket is Enter Sandman versus One, their first and second music videos, as it happens. And for me, it's Blackened versus One, so 2 Injustice for All songs. Go figure. Round 4, match number 3 for me is Damage Inc. versus Injustice for All. Had to go with Injustice for All. So in my semifinals, there's 3 songs out of the 4 from Injustice for All, because that's the album for me. And in the metal community, I see there's definitely an undercurrent of people that shit on that album for the production, and it's a weird production album, but I don't think it's a deal breaker. I don't think that disqualifies those songs from being amazing. But, I don't know, to each their own. The fan vote was Nothing Else Matters versus Fade to Black, and Fade to Black actually beat Nothing Else Matters, which, fucking whatever. Alright, you do you. Final matchup of the quarterfinals, Dyer's Eve versus All Nightmare Long. Both of these songs are relentless, both of these songs absolutely smash face. I have to go with All Nightmare Long. All Nightmare Long just absolutely encapsulates what I'm looking for in a metal song. It goes for 8.5 minutes and it doesn't get boring. Their matchup was Master of Puppets versus Sad But True, and Master of Puppets takes the day. So yeah, Puppets definitely doing some business, and I'm all for it. I would have picked Puppets over Sad But True myself, so I have to agree. Semifinals. On the fan bracket, it's Enter Sandman from the Black Album versus One from Injustice for All, and One goes to the finals. On my bracket, it's Blackened versus One, and One also goes to the finals. Other side of the semifinal bracket, for them, it's Fade to Black versus Master of Puppets, and Master of Puppets wins, thank God. And for me, it's Injustice for All versus All Nightmare Long. And I went with All Nightmare Long. So my finals is One versus All Nightmare Long. Their finals is One versus Master of Puppets. The fan vote went with Master of Puppets. Dun, 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 dun. Ha 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 ha. I don't begrudge Master of Puppets for winning this bracket, though I definitely would have gone with One over Master of Puppets. Would I go with it over All Nightmare Long? Funny story. Originally, I didn't. My original winner was All Nightmare Long. But I did the first 25 minutes that you hear of this podcast. I recorded that like a month and a half ago and just kind of left it because I was going to try and get this out around the time that the championship happened. I wound up editing that before I recorded the rest of this. And listening to my description of one from the first round of this actually changed my mind. Go back and rewind back and listen to that, and that's why one wins the tournament for me. The fact that it was in the finals of the fan vote, I can live with that. I can live with all of this. I'm not, like, super mad at any of the picks. I'm not like, oh, I can't believe they did that one. Like, I get it. Even if I don't agree with them, like, I'm not mad about it. There's a lot more important shit going on in the world than whether Fade to Black advances in a fan vote or not. I don't care. Ultimately, this is all about having fun. And for me, this was fun. I'm having fun doing it. And I hope you had fun listening. So, what are your favorite Metallica songs? Are there any things that you strongly disagree with enough to type a comment? Go ahead, I dare you, because the only comments I get on my YouTube channel are bots, and occasionally one of my friends will type something once every like 3 or 4 months. So, if you've got something to say about Metallica, go ahead, engage with this thing. Hit the like button, or the dislike button, because it measures engagement as raw engagement. It doesn't actually care whether it's liked or disliked. So whatever, man. Share the thing around with your friends. Share some of my other stuff around. I could use the help because I'm terrible at promoting myself. I'm terrible at calls to action. This is like kind of one of the first times I've thought to do it. It's at the end of this thing that you're probably not still listening to by this point. But you can find me at Nicholas Nutter on Twitter. You can find my blog at nicknutterblog.blogspot.com. I have a SoundCloud page. The last few things I put up there are basically, that's for stuff that, because SoundCloud's copyright bots are way less judicious, I can get away with a lot more there. So like if I wanted to put up, say, a radio show episode where I actually play some music for you, I actually did 2 of those back in quarantine, and I think one of them might never have been listened to by another human being. So, if you want to go check out those lonely little things, there's that. On this channel, I post music, poetry, and music reviews, and, I guess discussions like this. I'm going to be expanding into other topics and other things. I'm trying to get back into writing fiction, but who the hell has the time? If you'd like me to do content about magic or wrestling, I guess I could make something of that ilk happen. I do have another YouTube channel called The GV Crew, where I've been posting, I think we're up to 8 now, because we did 15 albums back in the day, and, I mean, technically 16, but one of them's not really an album, it's just an 8-hour-long noise thing. They're not all like that. Some of them are a lot more tuneful. A lot of that music is on that channel, and it's feeling lonely too, so if you want to go over to the GV Crew's YouTube page, we just posted GV8, the GV EP, Wickedly Awful Music. It's a complicated album title, but there you go. For your listening pleasure or displeasure, because it's weird. They're all weird, but I don't know. Weird music is cool. I like weird music. I hope you like weird music too. So anyway, I've rambled on long enough. I hope you had fun. Hope you enjoyed it. And hopefully I will catch you in the next one. Love over fear.